ETF, which I find a lot more bullish than a futures ETF. I don't know. I mean, if you guys have ever looked at like the gold or the silver chart and what happened when they launched futures ETFs on gold, magically at a top is when they opened trading for futures on gold, and then gold, essentially tanked like, I don't know, 50-60% or something over the next few months. I think silver did the same. So I don't find the leverage ETF to be nearly as bullish as a spot ETF, because if it's a spot ETF, that means they can only buy, they can't short it. What are your guys' thoughts? Let's start with you, Group.
Yeah, I don't care for the leveraged ETF. I think I don't know why they would start with that. It's kind of like we can leverage Bitcoin on our own. Like it doesn't really help anybody who's already invested into Bitcoin. I don't think anybody who is already invested into Bitcoin would be interested in a leveraged ETF. Now, if it was spot, like you said, I think that would be much better, because then you could just add that to your portfolio, your 401k, your retirement funds, or any sort of educational funds or anything, and that would be bullish. But as far as a leveraged one, I don't know how many people would be willing to put that in their portfolios long term. So it's not something that I'm interested in. I don't think the general investors who are already in Bitcoin are interested in it. I think it's really just going to be for institutions to manipulate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's not as relevant, and as you mentioned, exactly, the spot ETF is what ultimately what everyone would be after.
Right.
And yeah, when you and it adds to how official and how settled crypto is becoming in general with the markets and the government and everything. That's pretty much the only plus I see right now. But as for leveraged ETFs, yeah, it's just gonna be pure and utter manipulation from the institutions.
Yeah, isn't there some kind of rule or something that institutions, or at least certain institutions, can't trade an asset unless it's over a certain market cap value?
I don't know about that.
I could have sworn I read that somewhere. I mean, I could be wrong. But if that's
what's Bitcoin at right now, like 400 billion?
Let me see. 580 billion.
I don't think they'd have an issue with any threshold, but
No, I don't think so either. But when you're talking about some of these hedge funds and their assets or whatnot, we're talking like they dwarf Bitcoin alone in terms of assets. They got 8, 10, 12 trillion dollars or whatnot. I don't know. I thought I read that somewhere. And I don't think if that was the case, and if that was true, I don't think they can buy that asset like Bitcoin for spot or whatever, unless it was above a certain threshold. So I don't know. So maybe this leverage ETF is, what Group says, is manipulation to get an entry price that they want, dump it, buy it up at the bottom, and then magically on timely news or something at a big support level or something, now they can say, oh, we have our spot ETF ready to go, we're going to begin trading. But really, they've already bought the Bitcoins. And
Yeah,
they're most likely just going to be moving it at very convenient times, such as we just saw with the SEC. It's how curious is it? SEC sues all of these altcoins and whatnot, and then Bitcoin ETFs get filed all across the board. Very interesting timing.
Yeah, they did the same after FTX crash or whatever, or went under, or all the FTX FUD or whatever. This is like the very next day that they announced that they were arresting Sam or pressing charges against Sam or whatever. The SEC magically had like 180-page crypto regulation bill ready to be pushed out. Like they have this stuff ready.
Yeah, at this point, they're just checking marks on their agenda and reaching timelines. Everything is timed and planned years beforehand, most likely.
My price prediction for this whole event is that Bitcoin hits 32.5 on Tuesday as soon as it launches, and then it tanks.
Just high enough to fill the gap.
No, I think it's going to hit the 0.5 of the entire bear market. So 32,675 is the 50% retracement from the all-time high to our bear market low.
Okay, can you share your screen? I think I have to give you permission. I want to see.
Yeah.
Try sharing your screen. I may have to make you host.
Oh, it says host disabled.
Okay, I have to make you host. Okay, so you should be good now. So then
I am in control now.
So when Warp is ready to share his screen and his thoughts or whatever, you can just pass him host.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, just taking the all-time high to the bear market low here. 32,675 is that 0.5 mark. Now, if you went to the year, so if you did a 12-month chart, and I know it's kind of just a few candles, and you just took last year's high to last year's low, you can see where we rejected the first time was right at the 0.618. So you can see that if we go by the year, that's our resistance, right? And so this golden pocket is where typically people are going to say, wow, that's expensive, I got to sell it off when it's heading back up on a retrace. So that's the current resistance, and I think we can peek up over it to that 32.5 mark, which lines up very nicely with that peak right there. I don't know if you can see it, but right there. So it's right in the same vicinity. And it's really just as simple as that. The point that, the 50% retracement is a very common place for something to retrace to. So that's where I see it going in the next 4 or 5 days to continue this up. And then probably I don't think it's going to tank right away. I think it'll kind of hover around there a little bit for a while, but then I do think it'll eventually retrace from there. And then if we break it, then that's where I think we're going to head up into these levels. And 50K is the top for me. That's like max. Ooh. Right? So that's why I mentioned 50K before, because most cycles, that's where it goes on the first rally, is to the 0.786. And I can actually show you this. It's actually quite fascinating. So human behavior doesn't change. It's been exactly the same for hundreds of years. And I can actually show you on the Dow Jones chart here, because this is almost 130 years of history. And if we go back to the Great Depression right here and just zoom in, and keep in mind, this is before anybody had any charts or anything. All they had was a newspaper, and they woke up and they looked at a price and they reacted to it. But if I just take the low here from where it started to the top before the Great Depression, you can see we get bought up in the golden pocket. This is where people emotionally and psychologically can't help themselves and say, wow, that's really cheap, I'm going to buy that. Now, if we do it inversely and we draw this downtrend, I can show you what the reversal looks like. So we just draw from the top to the bottom and zoom in, and this is how it works. You get a retracement back to the golden pocket, and here's where it's expensive. It's the opposite, because you're drawing a downtrend. And then it retraces, and then it finds support in the golden pocket the second time. This is what reversal looks like when it comes back into the golden pocket and finds support perfectly, and then gets up through the 786. And this is where greed and FOMO kick in right here. And you can see that that's where we got a really nice trend to make new all-time highs, right? So if I go to Bitcoin now, what I want you to do is just remember this picture right here, where we retrace to the golden pocket, sell off, support below, get back in it for the second time, and then make the run. All right, because this is the pattern that happens on every single asset. And it doesn't matter how old the asset is or how young the asset is. It happens just like this every single time. And in fact, every single Bitcoin cycle has done this exact pattern. So if I just go back to this one, for example, and just measure the entire bear market from the top to the bottom, what do we get? We get a move. Notice the 0.5 as resistance, right? And so this is what we might be facing now, right? We're getting up to that 0.5 now, and it's going to be serious resistance. But it was an ascending triangle here, and it broke. And where does it go? Almost all the way to the 786, golden pocket, and sell off. Now that doesn't look like much, but this was a 40% drop from there, right? Then it comes back into the golden pocket and finds support. And then we get through the greed and FOMO zone and its new all-time highs. Now, what's also very fascinating is most people don't know where to sell in the bull market. They're like, I don't know, there's no support or resistance up here. I have no idea where the top is. Well, your best bet is to sell at the 1.618. And then if it gets past that, you sell at the 2.272 every single time. So let's do the next market. So we're going to measure this top to this bottom. And what do we get? The exact same thing. 786, golden pocket, sell off, return to the golden pocket, support inside. This looks identical to the Dow Jones 100 years ago. Like exactly the same pattern. And then we get through the 786, greed and FOMO kick in. Where do you take your profits? The 1.618. We didn't get to the 2.272 this time, but you can find the top very, very easily just with fibs. If I go back to the cycle before this one, it's still the same pattern. Top, bottom. Now you got to go to the daily because it was a lot more volatile back then to actually see this. But it's still got almost all the way to the 786. Golden pocket, huge sell-off. Come on, magnet. It's not going to give it to me. But anyway, that was a 60% fall, right? And then it gets up into the golden pocket, finds support, and then we're off into the new bull market. Where do you take your profits? The 1.618. And if it gets past that, you take it at 2.272. Every single market's been exactly the same, right? So let's go look at our current market. Let's erase our drawings. And let's see if this is going to repeat. What can we expect? So we draw our top to our bottom. Well, I expect to go to the golden pocket, possibly the 786, before we get a retracement, because that's what every single cycle has done. That's what the Dow Jones did, right? We get up as high as the 50K mark, drop back down, find support somewhere down below, return to the golden pocket. Once you see this return in the 39 to 45 area, that's when you want to load up, because that's when the new bull market's going to begin. So what do you think?
Where do you see it reaching in a rough estimate of what prices could we see of all-time highs in the next bull market?
Well, we'll just go to the same logic, right? So the logic that I'm seeing is the first two cycles that I measured went to the 2.272, right? You saw that. And then this current cycle only made it to the 1.618. So what that tells us is that Bitcoin is weakening over time. It's stabilizing. It's still volatile as hell, but it's not nearly as volatile as it used to be in the early days, right? So as time goes by and each cycle goes, it's gonna make less of a parabolic move, and it's gonna retrace more than it did before, just like we saw in this cycle. This is the first cycle that we had a return to the previous all-time high, right? And so it's definitely weakening, right? We actually have a double top here, which has never happened either. So on a macro level, like that could be pretty bad. Like that could be devastating if it does not do this again, right? Who knows how much Bitcoin's going to continue repeating these cycles. We only have 12, 13 years of history. But if you kind of just zoom out here and look at this graph, it's no longer heading straight up. It's kind of starting to flatten out, right? And so at some point, do we eventually just get like a sideways motion, or do we continue this parabolic run is the question, right? I was saying last week that if Bitcoin broke 25K, that it breaks the entire chart. The whole thing, like on a large scale, is at risk of breaking down. And it saved itself, and I actually went long at 25K because I didn't believe that we would be breaking the whole chart. But this is the pattern that I see happening, and if it's going to continue to weaken, then the first place we might want to take our profits is at 100K, right? And then if it gets past that, then we'll take it to the 1.414. If it gets past that, this is as high as I can possibly see it going. And it sounds like insane, right? To say Bitcoin at 171 grand. That sounds absolutely nuts. I get it. But so did 70K when it was at 3K. And so did 20K when it was at $300. Right.
Yeah.
And so we can't say that it's impossible. And so far, it's repeating the pattern, even in the face of the current economic situation we have around the world.
That was my thought too, when I first saw Bitcoin back in like 2013 or something. It was like $350, and I didn't buy it because coming from traditional finance, like, oh, that's too expensive. Nobody's going to buy that.
Right.
I can't make money off of it. So, I mean, hindsight kind of bit me there, because I could have bought Bitcoin at $350 and, forgot about it for 10 years and then sell it at 60K.
Right.
But I think if you draw a channel on your log chart there, I think the top of that channel also touches roughly about that 1.68 fib, which still puts
Here?
Bitcoin, yeah, somewhere up in there.
Yeah. I think it's totally possible, why we didn't go to the 2.272 here, I don't know. I think it might be because markets are forward looking and back down, in this time frame. Market makers and big money knew that we were heading into a time that was not so economically prosperous as we were used to. So, I mean, you had the S&P and the NASDAQ becoming bearish on high time frames around the end of 2021 and into early 2022 at the same time. And Bitcoin hasn't even existed in a time of recession or in a time when the NASDAQ or the S&P wasn't just going straight up. So this could be a reason why. But I think that Bitcoin's going to survive. I think it's going to do well. I think that it's going to be around forever. I don't think it's something that's going to go away. It's obvious now that the governments can't touch it, right? They can touch everything else, but it doesn't look like they're going to be able to do anything about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to pick your guys' brains on. Kind of like a tinfoil hat time or something. Like there's always been speculation and rumors that Bitcoin was government created, that it wasn't just some guy that nobody's heard of or whatever that created it for the black market or whatever. So I guess the idea was to create this digital currency or whatever that's against the banks, against the government or whatever, but it was actually created by the government. And its intent or whatever was to get us acclimated to the idea of digital currencies, and possibly kill Bitcoin completely and replace it with like a world coin or some other kind of major globally controlled coin.
Yeah. I think that CBDCs are the opposite of what the majority of people who invest in crypto want.
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
that most people join crypto because they want the freedom of being able to store their money without anybody else's eyes on it. And when you introduce CBDCs, they're basically just going to be able to print money out of thin air, which they do already anyway, but it's going to be even worse. They're going to be able to really take advantage of what they do with loans and banks and stuff, even more so now. I don't think that I'll use it until it's absolutely necessary. And I don't think it's bullish for Bitcoin. I don't think CBDCs are good for Bitcoin.
No, I don't think it's bullish for crypto, period, and anybody using crypto.
Yeah, but nevertheless, ultimately, they will be forced upon us, in my opinion, in the future. Like we
Yeah.
will be forced to use them as we use bills,
Right.
fiat currency.
And that goes back to my, I guess, comment that, you know, crypto and this whole idea of a digital economy and currencies or whatever that are against the banks or whatever are getting us used to this idea of a digital economy, and then the government swoops in and just like changes everything and then forces us on the CBDCs, and they kill what we really thought, you know, crypto was, and then poof, now they, you know, they control our wallets, they force regulations, force KYC, so they know who's spending what, they know where every dollar goes. Now we have to use CBDCs for you know, transactions, sharing with friends and family, like through Venmo, PayPal, or whatever, and then Bitcoin just kind of fades into existence or something like a lot of coins already have.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the other thing is a lot of people are still trying to buy up all these alts, and I don't have any. I literally have 0 altcoins, and I haven't for a long time. I have some Link, and I have some of what's called BitTensor, which is Tau, which is, you know, a speculative buy on artificial intelligence blockchain technology of some sort, whatever that's going to look like. But I think that'll be the next narrative in the bull cycle. But what people don't realize is that every cycle there's a whole new slew of altcoins that come out, and those are the ones that make it. And I don't think AVAX or Sol or Phantom, I don't think any of these are going to make it. And by make it, I mean I don't think they're going to go back to their all-time highs. I don't think there's any chance in that at all.
Very
There's going to be a
interesting.
new set of layer ones that are the new Ethereum killers, and there's going to be a whole new top 10, a whole new top 20. If you go look at all the previous bull markets and look at the 2018 top 20, you're not going to recognize anything that you see there. And the same thing for the prior market before that. So I don't think that buying altcoins right now is a good idea. I think you need to wait like 3 to 6 months, wait for the new narratives to come out, wait for the altcoins and these projects that are gonna, you know, they'll start peeking their head out. You'll see like, oh, this one's doing this, and then oh, there's a new narrative over here, and you know, then it'll be time to start swapping your Bitcoin for a little bit of those as a speculation buy. But right now, I think, you know, Bitcoin's going to remain king. I don't think Ethereum's going to get any further than 2K to 2200 tops before the next bull market starts. But I do think that Bitcoin could potentially get all the way up to 50. That would be the max too. Typically things will sell off in the golden pocket, and they'll wick to the 786. So safely, you would say like 44, 45, at least according to the pattern.
It would be quite interesting to see a correlation with your analysis with the Bitcoin halvings.
Yeah, I actually have that. And I actually made this chart like almost a year ago now, and it might look like a mess at this point, but there's actually a correlation with a lot of things in the halvings. Let me see if I can get this to zoom in right, because I haven't opened this in a while. Okay, so the orange lines are your Bitcoin halvings, right? And I'm going to explain the moons as well because it's absolutely fascinating. I'm not a big, like, you know, horoscope guy. I don't believe the planets predict your future. I think all that's a bunch of crap. But it is fascinating to note that the lunar eclipse cycles that we have every 4 years correlate with the bear markets. Now, that might just be a coincidence on when Bitcoin started in its halvings, but whenever we have a season of lunar eclipses, and these are total lunar eclipses, by the way, it is the bear market. And then as soon as the last eclipse, which are these larger orange moons, as soon as we have the last one of the season, it almost marks the low of the bear market every single time. So the white flags are the bear market lows, and these orange moons are the dates of the last total lunar eclipse, right? And so you can see here was a low. The first lunar eclipse gets very close to the all-time high too at the same time. That's why there's a green one. So you can see the green one close to the all-time high here. This one here marked the bear market low. This one here marked the bear market low. This one here didn't. It was actually back here, but this was more of a double bottom anyway, so it did get very close to the end of the bear market still. And then our most recent one happened it was actually the day of the lunar eclipse. The bear market low happened the exact day of the last lunar eclipse. Right? Now, another thing that I did was I took the average amount of time in between the bear market low and the next Bitcoin halving to see if I could get like an average, right? So, for example, this was 375 days, the halving after the bear market low. This halving was 541 days after the bear market low. And then this cycle, it was 514 days after the bear market low. So I just took all three of those dates. So I did 514 and 541 from the approximate Bitcoin halving and drew this box here. And I did this, when we were way back here. And I was sharing this with my community. And I said, I think we're going to see the bottom sometime between these lines. And the green line is the average. So I just took the average of those three time frames. And that's exactly what it looked like. And that's exactly how it happened. So according to the cycles, we won't see the bear market low until somewhere around February of 2026, according to the moon.
I don't know what's going on.
Which is crazy.
I've heard burritos. Some people
I don't know. What do you think about that?
Going.
Caleb has to work. Everybody's going.
Who's talking? There we go. I forgot I was the host and I could do that. So, what do you think about all that?
Well, I heard burritos and I was like, I just kind of got excited there. I was like, man, that sounds so good right now. I think it's very interesting. I personally, I've seen that Miriam chick or whatever that does like all the horoscopes or whatever.
Takes it a little too far, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This is specifically just talking about the total lunar eclipses, and we don't get them all the time. It only happens like every 4 years, and then in that year, you get like 2 to 4 of them all at one shot. So it just happens to line up with Bitcoin's cycles, which is weird coincidence. I don't know. I don't think there's a direct correlation. Like, I don't think there's a lunar eclipse and somehow it affects human behavior, but it does seem to be lining up with Bitcoin cycles somehow.
Yeah, it's an interesting coincidence. In my opinion, I don't think it has any relevance.
No, like, I'm not saying that you should wait for the lunar eclipse and then buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally got that when
so don't do that. Although if you did that every single cycle up to now, you did very well.
Yeah, true. I mean, there's no denying that the data is there, actually.
There was somebody, I mean, it's not something that somebody, just created recently. It was some kind of like historical chart with different like you have there with moon patterns and sun patterns that align with different months that kind of mark tops and bottoms or whatever. That I thought was pretty interesting, and it goes back through history too. So it's not just like some horoscope person creates out of thin air or whatever.
Yeah,
I wish I can find it. I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was interesting. It kind of lines up with your theory here about phases and moon cycles and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, this chart started just by trying to figure out the timing between the halvening and when the low was, and then I'm an amateur astronomer, so like I have a telescope and I go out and I take pictures of nebulas and galaxies that are millions of light years away and stuff from my backyard. And then there was a lunar eclipse coming up and I was like, oh, that's cool. And so I was like, wait a minute, we're in like a bear market. And I remember the last time I took a picture of the last eclipse, we were at like almost the height of the bull market. And I was like, that's fascinating. I wonder if there's any sort of correlation with this, So I was bored one night and I just went in and started looking and I was like, wow, that's kind of, and then I noticed it. So it's not like it was something I've been watching for a while.
It's definitely an interesting take, but taking away from it, your Fibonacci analysis is probably one of the most reasonable and realistic price analysis I've seen since I joined Twitter and Astrobit, I think.
Thank you. And it's actually just fascinatingly simple, and if it's something that doesn't just work on this, it works on literally everything. Like I bought PayPal at, let's see if is PayPal on here. No, but I bought PayPal at $59.50.
Are those all your
And
tabs?
that was, oh yeah, those are all my tabs.
Jesus Christ, dude, that's a lot of tabs.
Which
Well, I do a
browser?
lot of trading. So let me just look at PayPal. So like the golden pocket is just your best friend. And this is where, oh, there it is. So this is where I bought PayPal, literally right on that mark. Literally right there. And all I had to do, let me get rid of the pivots, but all I had to do was draw its all-time low to its all-time high. And it literally gave me that number to the cent of that bottom. Like that's accurate AF.
Mm.
Right? And so now I'm just holding on. If it breaks, cool, I'll cut it with no loss. But like I'm almost up 10% already on it. I have some call options for like, I think October. So when it gets to the top of the golden pocket, I'll cut it. And then if it breaks that downtrend, I'll just jump back in. And so that's it. I make it simple for myself. There's also massive divergence here, so you got this pointing down, you got your RSI pointing way up. So that's a bottom in my opinion. Like I'm willing to hold on to that for a while.
I see
So in
you
this
use the
perspective-
MACD.
Yeah, I use the MACD for it as well because it's also pointing up. This is how I was able, like I sold everything in crypto and in stocks literally in January of 2021. And the reason is because you could easily see that this is pointing up here while this is pointing down very clearly from these 2 points. And then I literally bought Bitcoin here at the very bottom because I could find that when I draw my fibs from this bottom to this top, look at that perfect 0.5. And not only that, but you have divergence to the downside here. And then this is pointing up here. And so divergence helped us find the exact top and the exact bottom already.
Yeah,
It
you had
looks very similar to where your bonsai bot bought.
Yeah, well, no, my bonsai bot didn't buy here because it wasn't going yet, but it did buy this break at 27K. So I'm real happy with the way that it's starting. The bad part is everybody's going to expect this to happen every time, and it's not. So
we've
Sorry,
we've all been there.
Oh, but you actually caught that entire weekly candle, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Very nice.
I was very confident in that. I was very confident in that. I actually dollar cost average long-term Bitcoin here. So I had 3 points so far that I've dollar cost average, and it was this 0.5, that wick right there, due to this trend line right here. And that was the retest. So I bought again right there. And then I bought again right here at 25 because this was serious resistance coming up. Couldn't break it, couldn't break it, couldn't break it. Big green candle to break it. It's going to take a big red candle to break back through there, and it wasn't doing it. And so I just bought right on that line right there. So I've been very fortunate this year to be able to call as much as I've called. That's not something that happens often. I'm just kind of I'm having a good year, so far anyway. I'm sure it can be ruined in 1 week.
Don't take a 1 or 2% loss. Your channel will be destroyed.
I know.
Got to catch perfect entries, perfect tops, perfect bottoms, no losses
Yeah.
ever.
Knock on wood, knock on wood.
What else is fascinating is how I was taking the downtrends and seeing how far up it would go and seeing the pattern of reversal, is you can take the uptrends too to see how far they retrace. And so I was seeing a pattern with that as well. So if you take this uptrend, right? So like this entire bull market, you can see we retraced to the 236. And actually, if we look at this one, it retraced exactly to the 236 if you measure this one. This one dipped just below the 236, right? So if we measure the one after that, from the bottom to the top, it went to the 382, right? So now if we do the next one, that's where I caught the 0.5. And so there's like a progression happening where each market retraces to the next fib down. right? So the first cycle was 236, the second was just below the 236, the third went to the 382, and now our fourth went to the 0.5. So, I mean, if this continues, then wherever our top ends up forming, we can measure that and say, oh, we're probably going to come down to the 618 or inside the golden pocket on the next retracement. You know, if that pattern, you know, continues.
Oof, if we saw those prices at 10,000, people would just go crazy.
That's what I'm saying. If Bitcoin went down there, it's broken. It's completely broken.
Yeah.
It would end up becoming like, if it got down this far, then now we're talking about like a multi-year consolidation range in here, where all of this becomes the next like major consolidation. Like, I don't see it recovering from that anytime soon. I honestly think that if Bitcoin went to 10K, we would skip a cycle. Like, we wouldn't have a bull market.
Yeah.
Because the entire chart at that point, if you zoom out and just pretend that that's happened, it's broken.
Yeah, it just would, the narrative wouldn't make sense anymore.
Right. So this can't happen, or things get really bad.
Yeah.
You guys know who Capo is?
Yeah, I feel bad for the guy, honestly.
I do too. I mean, I don't know what happened within the last year or two. I mean, he used to be a very humble, I'm sure he still is. I'm sure he's still very humble, but he used to be a great chartist and trader. I don't know where this 10K call has been coming from. But yeah, he's just been catching it just absolutely left and right. Now, I had expected at least a higher low to 17K. But anything below that, no, I mean, that just wasn't possible. But this ETF news is kind of changing that narrative. I thought for sure the SEC FUD was, I mean, it had the momentum, and I thought for sure it was going to at least go fill that gap at 20K. But it looks like we're going to go fill 33K or 35K, wherever it's at now.
Yeah, let me see. The gap is 34 to 35.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I was looking at was total cap. So you have this nice inverted head and shoulders on the weekly, heading back up towards 1.25. And if this breaks, then we're going to 1.5, right? Because you can see that previous support back here at the same spot. So that's kind of where I see us tapping out this year as well. And if that happens and Bitcoin dominance continues, then that also fits my analysis on where Bitcoin's going before retracing again, which would be somewhere up in the golden pocket. Because that's about a, what, you know, almost like 40% from here, 35, 30, like 38% from here. So I don't know what this would be, but yeah, 30, 38, 40% get you into that golden pocket. So we'll see. This is where I have Bitcoin dominance going, is 53.5. And then if it breaks that, then it's going to maybe go into its golden pocket and test the downtrend. So that fits as well. Where we go like here, bump, 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 and then fall. That's how I see it anyway.
Kind of find it interesting that even though dominance is increasing, altcoins are still trying to pump with it.
I think the altcoins are just in a relief bounce because they've just taken such a beating.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like almost like a mandatory thing. The sellers just get exhausted.
I think so too.
They're all still in downtrends, you know, like all these alts are still in downtrends. The only one I really like is Litecoin. Its halving is in August. So I do think that we break this and get to about 125 minimum by August. Because because it's the only one of the few things that hasn't broken its downtrend yet, and it's still kind of holding its own. It's still at 90, while most alts are, you know, back down here right now.
I hope XRP falls off the face of the earth. I'm so tired of hearing
It
XRP.
will. It's done.
Yeah.
That
Please just kill XRP.
it's done. There's too many tokens.
Yeah.
There's too much supply.
I'm just mind blown how people think that if it wins its SEC lawsuit, that it's just going to magically go to $1,000 a coin.
Yeah, I've seen that so
30
many
cents?
times. It's so much people that just call for like 500 plus price on XRP, and it's like, where are you getting these numbers from? Disneyland or what?
Yeah, the market cap to even achieve that would practically mean that every dollar on the planet would have to be in XRP, and it have to be the only existing crypto or currency, period.
Makes no
I mean, you
sense.
do have to give it to them. Like, it's lasted a really long time. Like, it's transcended cycles, whereas most altcoins don't. You know, I'll be curious to see if ADA survives this cycle, because it was like pretty big in the previous two.
I think
So-
I think ADA will. I'm pretty biased because I like ADA quite a bit.
Yeah.
Its TVL has just been rising and breaking all-time highs month after month after month. So a lot of its DeFi and a lot of the inside protocols and the projects being built upon it is just growing exponentially, actually. So it's interesting. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree, 'cause I think we're still kind of coming out of like that .com bubble pop type thing.
Yeah.
So I think there's still a lot of blue chip coins now that, you know, are fundamentally sound and will make it out of this, you know, bear market and will survive. Because even when .com bubble popped, like Amazon was part of that. And look at Amazon now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't Apple in there too? Or
In the
Microsoft?
.com
Was it
bubble.
Microsoft.
No, Apple was way before that, I think.
Which
Yeah.
one?
I think Apple was at like $3 then.
So
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of altcoins are here to stay. That's a certainty.
I think ADA, I think ADA too will find a way to survive. I think they have sound fundamentals. There are a lot of protocols built on ADA, as you said. I think AVAX is pretty solid too. CRV, I think Curve, I think is probably gonna once the stable coins really start popping off, you know, when central banks, you know, create their own stable coins or whatever, I think they'll find a lot of use out of Curve. But it hasn't had a serious bull run yet. So it's still relatively new. Sol, that can just go to zero. Just send it to zero. It's a shit project.
I just stick it behind the barn.
Send XRP with, I think Matic. Matic will make it out, and maybe I think Link, maybe.
I think Link might be the best shot at making it, and the only reason is because it's the smart contract token, like, and it's used by every blockchain. Like,
Yeah.
Without it, what does it look like? Right, and so that's what you got to do, is you got to say, okay, can the industry get by without it? And I don't think the industry can get by without Link. I do think the industry can get by without all these other layer ones, because Ethereum is going to remain king. I think layer twos are just going to be a solution for a few years until something replaces that. The market share for layer twos now is big. You got ARB and Matic and Optimism. So now you have 3 Matics in the market, and now it's diluted. You know, so that's why they're all suffering.
Yeah.
How many of those do you need? How many layer ones do we need? Like, you know, like, it just.
Yeah, I think ADA is gonna be very similar to that comparison between Apple and Microsoft, for example. but one
Hmm.
of them is most certainly going to be smaller than the other because of just the first mover advantage, that being Ethereum.
Jose is asking what you expect the next high or low on Bitcoin to be, daily or weekly.
Me?
I guess it's an open question, but
All
I
of
mean,
us?
you got your chart up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. Oh, there's the chat up here now. Okay. What price do you expect for the next high or low on Bitcoin? Okay, the next high or low. Well, that honestly depends on where the top of this is. So I can't measure this yet, and that's the big thing when you're using fibs. Like, you can't measure this little uptrend that we're getting until we see a confirmed top of sorts, right? So like, you couldn't really measure to see this retracement until we started making this move down here, where you can then measure from this bottom to this top and see that it was the 0.5, right? So that's where we retrace to. So now wherever this ends up going, so let's just hypothetically say it goes and fills that gap at 35, right? Well, you would be able to then take your measurement to that 35K mark and say, okay, well, we might retrace back down to here or to the 382. And so to understand which fibs are important is when you get a nice uptrend where you get like a 45-degree angle uptrend, like a really strong one, whether it's an uptrend or a downtrend, the price will retrace to the 236 or the 382 and then bounce and go make a new high. If it breaks the 382, your trend is essentially broken. And I can show you that here, where after we get through this greed and FOMO zone and start making these nice uptrends, you can see if you measured each one of these individually, like the first one here from this bottom to this top, you can see that we retraced to the 236. We didn't break the 382. So the trend remains intact and we go on and make another high. And so if you measure the next one from that bottom to that top, it's a perfect 236 bounce. So this is a sign of a very, very strong trend occurring, right? And then we go on and make another high. So let's measure the next one from this bottom to this top. And you can see another 236 bounce, right? And it's not until we start seeing it retrace further than the 382, like for instance here, that we notice that our trend got weaker. And at this point, you should start dollar cost averaging out, right? And we did go on to make another high, but if you notice, we found that the trend got weaker here, and then we went sideways for almost 20 years. And so you can see this happening before it happens, when your trend gets weaker for the first time, right? And so I don't know where I was going before that, other than we need to wait for a top to see what kind of retracement we get, right? So let's just say this is the top. Well, if that's the top, then our trend is definitely getting weaker compared to our last retracements. And then we can start looking for either sideways action or a move down from that point. But until we get a top, we can't really say where the next higher low would be. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think if we're looking for high or low, it wouldn't be on a macro level like a daily. I think we'd have to drop down to like a 15-minute or whatever to find the points of control,
Right.
and pivots and whatnot.
So we got like a channel forming here potentially. So I mean, we could get a move up to there before that happens. This little zone here is what's holding us up, and then this resistance is what's holding us up right now. But if we can break it, then you have this whole zone here that is possible. So from here to here,
Yeah,
is literally possible because of how much this moves in this range. So if we break this level that we're currently sitting at, then all the way up to through the top of this is potentially possible.
yeah. And when I see ranges like that, if I'm looking for a bearish retest, I don't ever try to look for when a price action tests the bottom of that range. I usually try to, at least shoot for the middle of a confluence zone, not necessarily at the bottom. So
Yeah.
the middle of that confluence zone is going to be right there around that 35K range.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean,
That would be the midpoint. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right around here.
It doesn't make sense to reject here at the bottom. I mean, it'd be a really nasty trick if it did. But I don't see us rejecting here and nuking. I think there was a textbook SR flip at that 25K from the two previous highs that broke the structure and that sent us bullish. So now I don't see it being, rejected here on such a strong trend. So I'm leaning higher too on a macro level.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I think
I
we
agree.
go fill that gap at 35 for
Yeah.
sure this year. And then from there, we need to see, but I do think that we can get as high as 50. Maybe not this year. It might be like early next year. It's kind of hard to tell how fast it's going to happen. The timing part is the hardest. It's like figuring out how long it'll take to get there. I do think that it will get there eventually.
Yeah, we could say definitely in months, that wouldn't be so unreasonable.
Yeah.
And on one of your previous charts, you had, I guess some squigglies. We'll call them squigglies because that's what I call mine. That practically had all of 2024 being one big chop range. That is going to obliterate crypto Twitter because they're all expecting a bull market every 3 years like we have been, or 4 years like we have been. So if there's no bull
I mean,
market-
you have to go with the timing, right? So if our Bitcoin halving isn't until April of 2024,
yeah, it'd be late 24. Yeah.
then you're not going to really see the look at how much time in between the actual parabolic run starts between the halving and when it actually begins to that serious upward momentum. It's like, let's see, January to June. It's like 6 months after the halving, right? So like you're right, like after the halving in April, we're likely going to just slowly be grinding up, and it's going to chop everyone to death. Then your best bet is to just dollar cost average it on the dips and stop leverage trading because you're going to get wiped out.
Yeah.
This blue vertical line after the halving where it says 514.
I don't know why that one's there, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you if that's when prices started getting into discovery.
Yeah, I might have just been playing around with something because, like I said, it's been a while since I looked at this because we already basically used this chart for what it was used for, and I hadn't looked at it in a while. But these are the only ones that should be there or here. These are just your halvings, and then those white lines are the date of the last lunar eclipse of the season. Because I was trying to see how many days in between the low and the lunar eclipses were. Because some were pretty far apart, even though it was still near the low. But most of them were pretty close.
Nevertheless, I was gonna say that the next halving is the one that's gonna have the most eyes on it, because I remember the last one, it was big, like everyone was talking about it. It was all of the
there's going to be a lot of talk.
This one is gonna be the biggest talking point for the coming bull cycle.
Why?
And notice how each time it's a sell the news event, like initially, like right as it happens. This one wasn't. The next candle was green, but it did just go sideways for a while before the actual run. But I do anticipate like there being so much talk about it that it's going to dump right after the halving first, and then that's the dip you're going to want to buy. You can see here we went down pretty hefty before it went up, and then here the next week was red. So, right, that's not it. This one. And it was actually it was even a bearish engulfing. Like how dirty is that? Look at that.
Yeah.
So expect some tomfoolery when that happens for sure.
Yeah, I definitely expect some chop for like 2 to 3 months after it happens, and then that's when we will start getting into a different narrative. I wouldn't say price discovery or something like that, absolutely not, but definitely the narrative is going to change a little bit after the halving.
Yeah.
Well, why do you think that there's going to be a lot of eyes on the next halving, Warp?
Because it's so much bigger. Have you like crypto community has grown exponentially since the last one. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone made a lot of money the last bull run, and everyone lost a lot of money. So it's like from what I see, it's at least the community is at least 10 times bigger now than it was at the last halving. So and now with all of these narratives for ETF and all of it and all of that is gonna be definitely the most interesting period for Bitcoin that we've had ever since it became like a public thing, a publicly known thing.
Yeah, I agree. Each cycle, you're going to have more and more people talking about it. So it'll likely be in the news more than it used to be. One thing I do know is if you see celebrities coming on TV telling you to buy Bitcoin,
Sell.
that's the top.
Sell, yeah. That's what we're done here.
Thanks, Tom Brady. Do you chart too, Warp? Do you do TA?
I used to a lot, but since I started moving into algo trading, I kinda just got rusty at it, and I just don't do it anymore. I just focus on data and strategies and analysis for the strategies and testing a bunch of different things and risk settings and whatnot. So I just don't do much charting nowadays.
I got you. Did you guys say what bots do you have? Do you have a Bitcoin bot too?
No, I have an Ethereum one and a Solana.
Did your Ethereum bot catch these moves? Ours are retarded. I don't know what is up with our Bitcoin and Ethereum bot. Ours are just absolutely retarded.
Yeah, we got the last pump, not the most recent one.
Yeah.
We made a nice like 6% on the.
Yeah, our F
That's a
bot caught the second part of the pump. Then it closed and locked in profits, and then for whatever
Yeah, ours got the first part of
relonged.
it. Now, like my bot went long this morning and it was up like 3% because our TP was at like 6%. And then we rejected specifically at this resistance that we're at right now, and it just went short. So I am praying for the market to crash next week.
Yeah, I'm with Groot. I think we're going to see a continuance up. I mean, this is a really, really strong trend. So
Yeah.
our F bot is still long. Our
Yeah.
Bitcoin bot just went full retard. It locked in a profitable trade, and it closed out and then reshorted also for whatever stupid reason. Or yeah, it closed its long and locked in profit and then went short. But it's not too bad off into a downtrend or anything.
Here's the other thing to look at is the 200 weekly moving average. I don't know if you guys look at that too often, but it's very rare that we're below it, like ever, right? So like those were the dips in that market. That's when you wanted to buy here. And we spent a good deal of time underneath it for the first time. We spent more time underneath it this cycle than we have all cycles combined. And now we have just blasted back over it. And in my opinion, I don't think we're going to go back under that again. Right. And this will now continue to kind of move up over time. And I think that buying below the 200 weekly moving average on anything that is either a solid blue chip in the stock market or Bitcoin, I think is, one hell of an opportunity.
Yeah, definitely.
And we just kind of left that opportunity now,
Yeah, and as we mentioned before, if we come back down, that's when the narrative breaks.
Right. And that's why I said if this broke here, this was another reason why I was thinking if this didn't make it here and started heading down again, this kind of breaks the whole chart. Once again, it's just another nail in the coffin is basically what it would have been had that failed.
Let me show you the weekly or the same time frame.
How do I make you post again? Oh, there you are. I got it. Okay, there you go.
Think it might. Close that. There we go. So very, I guess, similar thought process that you have with the 200-day moving average. This is the 100-day moving average. Now, practically,
nice.
this. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying nice.
Oh,
I like charts. Sorry, I get excited when I see somebody else's chart.
yeah. So this is the second time ever since the 3K crash back in 19 that we've been this far below that 100-day moving average. Now,
Okay.
we broke very nicely above it from that 3K range, but we are still really technically consolidating under it. And we haven't even tested that 100-day moving average yet as a resistance. So there's still some more upside to go. We still can wick up, but I'm not convinced fully that this is not yet anyways, that this is, going to turn into another bull cycle. And just yet, I think, as long as price action is under that 100-day moving average, if this continues down this way or whatever, and we'll say, I think we both agree that, we could wick up or something to that range and then maybe fall back under. And then, so this could be, because typically, if we look at the 2019 lows that we topped out at 3K, there was a retest of it in 2020. Typically, after a big drop down or a big move up, there's always a retest of that range. We have not retested the 17K range yet. So that kind of is what building my narrative that we have two major bearish factors for me on a macro level, is that we are consolidating under that 100-day moving average. Now, of course, again, that's not including a wick or a poke above, but we also haven't retested that range. So if anybody believes in fractals or looks at fractals or whatnot, now that moving average clinged a little bit closer here to the price action, wasn't as drastic as this move here. So it's a little bit more bearish in my case. So I do agree that we will, kind of revisit that 35K range. I don't necessarily see 40K, but at some point, I think that there has to be a retest of that 17K range and at least, make some kind of little bit of a higher low here. Now, I don't that's not the prettiest or whatever. And then at some point, retest that range, and that'll be the bottom. So that's kind of pegging around that April timeframe for the next halving. And that next halving would kind of ensure like that next cycle for the bull market, which typically, or I guess not typically, rather, because I mean, the last time that let's see, it was March, both times, and in March, that signaled or signaled that next push up. So if that is the case, and having is what, April of next year, March, April, May, that would signal that bottom of this next for the next low and give us that next push for the next bull cycle. That coupled with regulations, they haven't regulated yet. They're going to force KYC, which is going to send U.S. residents scrambling to move funds, dump coins. They've obviously ramped up the pressure on FUDing or whatnot, coupled with the leverage ETF. I don't think that they're just gonna, with the leverage ETF, just say, all right, well, we're in here, we're gonna just leverage it, and we're just gonna continue the next cycle up and grind it up. I think they'll wait for it to go live. So about that Tuesday range that you were talking about, filling that gap at 35K, sounds about right for them to go live with that ETF and then kind of start the next cycle of the downtrend, and then into the halving of next year have a higher low at about that 17, 18K range. I would really like rather I'd really like to see this gap filled at that 20K range too. Now,
Yeah, that's where I think it bottoms. I think that's where I think that's the last retracement. So, you know, depending on where we get up to, I think that when we do come back down before the bull cycle, because that happens
Yeah.
like I showed you in every cycle,
Yeah.
I think that 20K is it, and it kind of matches how the previous cycle's low and then the next low was. If you kind of like angle the line a little bit where the actual bear market low was, and then the March 2020 dip is going to be like the same, I don't know what you would call it, incline from our current low to 20K when it comes back down.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I can agree. So we got a nice weekly candle here. I don't expect that to finish, you know, fill that gap on this candle. I think there might be a little bit of a retrace. As long as we hold above that 29K range, I think you have that target as well to hold above. And then over the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe kind of just fill that gap and just, I don't know, just grind it down and then fill that lower gap. And then we'll have that 100-day moving average come down. Because I also don't like the 7-day moving average under the 100-day moving average too. Now I use crossovers quite often to build my bias and whatnot. Because we haven't been below this. Well, this is CME, so it's not going to show that full history there. But well, even from 2017, not at one point until last year has that 7-day moving average broken below that 100-day moving average. So now all price action under that 100-day moving average is bearish. So as long as price action is under it and the 7-day moving average is under it, it's a bearish sentiment for me. So for me to be convinced that this is going to start that next bull cycle, that 100-day would have to cross above, or I mean, I'm sorry, that 7-day would have to cross above that 100-day. And then, like you say, maybe hit that 50K range and then come back and then see if maybe instead of that, if the 100-day just kind of flattens out right here and then builds a new base at 30K or somewhere around in there. And then price action builds a new bubble or whatever above it. We'll change that to green so people aren't confused there. I don't see this being the plausible scenario or case unless that 7-day crosses back above that 100-day. And then if that is the case, then this now becomes our new support. Because now that 100-day moving average would find a new base at 30K, matching the July lows. That shit stick is what I call those. And I think that might actually match one of your fibs from the top to the bottom. Well, I mean, it's still in the golden pocket. I find between the 0.618 and the 0.786 to be golden pocket. I've seen some people go between 0.5 and 0.618.
Yeah, the traditional golden pockets between the 0.5 and the 618. But that's like traditional stock market is where they typically will retrace to. But when you're dealing with a growth asset like Bitcoin or even PayPal, you want to use a deeper golden pocket.
Yeah, I like the 0.786. That's usually a good sweet spot. But I have seen a 0.886 tested quite a bit in a lot of downtrends, which was I found really interesting and rare. So, and then so log chart, I think from what we were talking about earlier, this channel. This is a 6-year long.
Yeah.
Close that out. A 6-year long channel that has not been broken. And that goes all the way back even to the 2017 highs. So that is the other scenario. So similar fractal, but I think that if fractals are repeating here or rhyming, that we're probably maybe somewhere around in here, but the fractal is just getting smaller. So that still could fit your 50K mark, and then retest that 20K range or whatever. And then the next high still puts it above that 180,000 to 200K range, which I think was what you had for that point, that 2.2.
1.618. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I see happening. And so I'm really kind of excited to see if that's what happens. You know, it's always fun to make a prediction, and then when you're right about it, it's really exciting. If you're wrong, it's okay because it's a pretty far out prediction.
That's why when you see all those like Moon Carl or whatever, they zoom way out.
Oh,
Like, we're going to $1 million. But it's like you don't tell people that, you know, there's going to be a massive dip somewhere in between there. So your $1 million target is probably like 20 years away. So you could say, I'm a genius. I don't know. F I think is still going to at least retest the 2K range. So there was a phenomenal call that I had in my Discord for the 1600s. Damn near perfect there.
Nice.
I still think that 2K is going to be our range there. I don't know, that daily. Damn, I don't know, man. That's not a terrible looking chart.
I think Ethereum has a bigger bullish case than it has in cycles past.
I tend to agree.
This cycle anyway, because of its, you know, it's deflationary now for the first time. So there is an issue though where like it's used everywhere, right? And so that sounds like a good thing, but it also has the potential for a lot of bad things to go wrong with any particular project, or, you know, with DeFi or so.
There's your 0.5 fib from the previous lows. I mean, that is a strong trend, and this is what I like to look for here is what I was talking about, that 7-day moving average.
Yeah, the crossover.
Yeah. And then now we have you know,
it looks like tweezer tops right now though on the daily. Is those tweezer tops candles sitting there?
Yeah, I am a little cautious of that. However, if that moving average breaks above that 100-day moving average, that could push the next candles above it. That could, or not above it, but continuation trend.
So usually it'll retest. So if you draw the downtrend there on just that recent downtrend, like just draw a line there. Yeah.
Oh, you mean the trend line?
Yep. So typically we'll retest before continuation.
Yeah, and that's what I think you said something similar about the 200-day moving average. So we've tested it here, broke above it, broke below it here, but now we have 4 candles above it. So now 1840, we'll just call it that, 1840, 1850.
Yeah.
So now anything above that moving average is bullish. So even on low time frames, if this were to just do this as that 7-day moving average, you know, catches up to the price action and breaks back above it, that's still a bullish case.
Yeah. If we get a move back down this weekend to that line, I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
Because those are the kinds of trades that I love the most is you can buy right on that line and your stop loss can be really close by. And so it's just super low risk trade setups like that.
Yeah, I was thinking the same as I was watching him draw.
Watching me draw?
Yeah.
Thinking what the same about this 1840 retest?
Yeah, about a retest after the break of the trend line and then a continuation up.
Oh yeah. But I think if this clears this moving average here, I mean, obviously there's a good shot of retesting 2K, maybe at least the top of this wick right here at 2015. We'll just call it 2K for sakes or whatever. For this to start to weaken, this would have to range up here for some time for that moving average to roll back over if it was going to. If not, if we're zooming out and looking at this at a more macro level, that actually shows a similar pattern here, which, or similar strength rather. So, I mean, that could do this and then, you know, break up to, you know, almost that 3K range by end of summer, which I find kind of odd. Well, August is usually typically historically a big pump month. So this could be a bullish summer until, you know, the end of August. Almost every September is when we normally see some pretty nasty dumps. So that could mark the top for us for the year. And then we'll come back and retest the range by December. And then going into halving next year, that could be the next cycle there. Man, it keeps clicking on the fucking. And then now look what we got. Now we have a new wonderful trend line. And we can clean that up, clean that up, clean that up. So to me, that looks rather bullish. However, we are coming into some confluence here. We are about to retest August of last year's highs at 2K and February 2021. So we are coming into a confluence range. So I think if we clear that, that's a pretty damn good bullish sign that we're going to continue up closer to 25K, maybe 3K.
Yeah.
I need some alt pumps though.
All right. I like Tau. That's the only altcoin that I'm sort of heavily invested in.
What is
It's a BitTensor. TAO.
Oh, TAO.
Yeah.
BitTensor.
BitTensor.
I have never heard of this project.
Neither have I.
Oh,
so this, that's it. That was it. It's just newly listed. So it was only available on BitTensor Exchange, but its tokenomics are identical to Bitcoin, and its halvening cycles are identical to Bitcoin. It's just starting off new, and basically it's a artificial intelligence project. They've already created the prototype called Chat Tensor, so it's similar to OpenAI, not nearly as advanced, obviously, but they do kind of have a little bit of a working product already. And we, like in my Discord, we bought this at $20 and took it to 120, and we sold there. And I just recently rebought at 40. So
was this like before?
I'm gonna hang. Anywhere? Yeah, so you could only get it on their exchange on the website, and then it ran up to like 120, and then they announced the listing on MEXC, and then it dumped, right? So, which is typical. So, I do think there's a lot of progress, like a lot of hope for this project. I think it's going to be one of the next tokens in the bull market. There's only like 4 million in circulation right now, and max at 21, just like Bitcoin. So I do like its similarities to Bitcoin and its tokenomics, as well as the narrative that they have going into the next cycle with AI being so big.
It's obviously proof of work, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. No,
I have a couple. I have a couple that I am invested in for the next cycle, which is ADA and Ergo.
is that the ticker symbol? What's the ticker symbol for Ergo?
It's the USD, Ergo USD.
Is this it though? ERGO?
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, Tether.
Qcoin.
This one I bought last year on the last bull cycle. I bought it at, if I remember correctly, it was like 0.9, and I rode it all the way up to the all-time high, which was like 19 or 22 or something like that, and I sold it at 15.
That's
and this is
solid trade.
Yeah, that was a really good trade. Really good trade.
Nice.
Made a bit of some bucks on that one.
Yeah, I'll say 15x, 16x.
Yeah. But the fundamentals for this project are insane. The team behind it, very smart individuals.
So what happened here? Is it bad tokenomics?
Just market crash.
Well,
There
well,
was
yeah, I
What's
guess
the
hype.
supply?
It's not that big. It's like 40 million, I think, or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Proof
so.
of work was focused on privacy. It has the first one of its dApps is it has the first integrated mixer, non-custodial mixer.
Is this still the same one here?
Yeah, that's it.
So it's got 60% circulating. So not
yeah.
100 million max.
100 million.
yeah, 128 fully diluted market cap. So that means its market cap is 60% supply. That means it's, I don't know, maybe 70, $80 million market cap somewhere in there.
Hmm.
And if I remember correctly, the halving for this coin is like every 4 months or something like that. So it halves a lot often. Is much more
Hmm.
often than Bitcoin. It's a very interesting project with a very solid team behind it.
All right, I'll look into it.
Yeah. I when I look at charts like this, I mean, it does scare me because it does look like
Yeah.
Yeah.
a dead project. But you know, I mean, I do take into consideration it did looks like it went live kind of like at the end of the 21 bull market and has just been hammered since.
Yeah,
However,
and then what's interesting is that whenever we reach those all-time highs, it almost had nothing built on it. Almost nothing. It was just like, oh, it's proof of work. The halvings work like this. And oh, it had no ICO. It had no investments from VCs. It was the same kind of philosophy behind the launch of Bitcoin. It was the same.
Ooh, look at that.
yeah.
Go back
This-
down to that volume profile.
Oh, yeah, beautiful, beautiful retest.
I like that. That can fly right to that downtrend. Right through that hole in the profile.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's how I where's Soul? That's how I spotted this gap on Twitter or for Twitter or whatever. Because I think where I spotted it somewhere around in here and saw that the price action was losing the confluence volume profile. There was a big ass gap in between. And I had targeted somewhere down here around this $12, $13 range. And sure as shit, it went down. But guess whose bot didn't catch the whole thing? I think it closed a short for profit here because I mean that was a support retest or whatever. And I think the lower time frames showed a bullish divergence or a bounce incoming or whatever, and then it just nuked. So it missed the entire last like 25% of that drop or whatever. It was so salty. But yeah. But I do really like CRV fundamentally, especially when it comes to altcoins. And this is already retested its all-time lows from creation, from listing or whatever. I think this is probably one of those coins that you buy and forget and just walk away for 5 years or 3 years or something until the next bull cycle.
And what is the idea behind the project? Like what their aim?
So they're like a liquidity pool provider and stable coins. So like when you deposit your money in a bank or something and they pay you interest or whatever, well, you're only getting interest on the money that you invest. So if I put $1,000 in a bank account that offers 1% interest or whatever, I'm only getting 1% interest. What Curve does is if you invest that same amount of money into their protocol or whatever, you're getting a return, a base return on the liquidity pool that you're in, but you're also getting an additional bonus percentage to another coin or another pool or something, just simply for investing in that liquidity pool. And of course, you can swap in and out between liquidity pools or whatever. I'll find the video on YouTube. Some guy did of an explainer. phenomenal video. And I think Curve is something that banks are going to utilize quite heavily, since they do a lot of like long-term, like savings account type stuffs or whatever. Because I mean, that's essentially what you do when you put your money into a bank account. They give you a small percentage of return on your account. Well, this is kind of like double dipping in between, different pools, because you're providing liquidity for different coins, different projects. So if a base amount is 4%, so I'll earn 4% on, let's say Curve, but I'm providing that liquidity because I put my funds in a pool for, like, say, AVAX. So I'll earn 4% returns for Curve, plus, let's say that pool offers another 5% for AVAX. So it's kind of double dipping your investment rather than just getting a base return like you would a savings account. Plus they do a lot for they do a lot of like stable coin. I forgot what they do exactly for stable coins, but Bank of America did a 140-page crypto like research thing where they talked about a lot of different projects, and they talked rather extensively about Curve. So I think, if we compare this to say Matic or something, before Matic went on its ungodly monster bull run. Damn it, squigglies are just on point here. Jesus. So if we look at Matic before its monstrous run, just a lot of sideways consolidation before, as the project is just getting out there and whatnot. So Curve is probably somewhere in this range, because it's never really been flooded, I think, until recently, but I don't think it had anything to do with the protocol. I mean, it's just never had a bull run. I think in a bull run, if this makes it out of a bear market, I think this is probably a $25 coin. So this is the Curve DAO token, and they've only got 26% of their supply, because a lot of their supply is locked up for liquidity pools, so they can give out rewards and whatnot.
For the bonus percentages, right?
Do what?
For the bonus percentages that they offer.
Yeah. So they're not dumping a whole bunch of their max supply into the market, because obviously they have to have a lot of the reserves for the liquidity pool rewards and whatnot.
2.3 billion, and it never had a bull run. Very interesting. Please share that video.
Yeah, I will. I'm not gonna waste everybody's time and go try to find it now and we all watch it. I'll just drop it into your guys' channels on the on AstroBiz Discord or something. But it's one of my top picks that I'm watching for in a bull run, and most especially since this 30K range or 30 cent range has been holding. I had been waiting since I think last year for a retest of 30 cents, and we only got this dip, not this week here. I think it may have been up here, but we only got 40-50 cents. So I was hoping that it would retest 30 cents. So I'm hoping we fill that volume profile there, and then maybe something happens to where Bitcoin decides to shit the bed and I can get that 30 cent range. Otherwise this would be just a DCA spot buy and forget 3 years. I'll probably put I don't know, I may put 50K in it or something and just walk away. Very interesting project. I'll definitely share that video.
Yeah, I'll look for
All right,
it.
well, listen, guys, I gotta run. But
crap,
thank you so much
2 hours.
for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I'll see y'all in the chats. All right.
Yeah, I think we'll call it
Love you
quits
guys.
here too, because we've
Appreciate
almost been rolling about 2 hours now.
Great talk, guys.
So it's been
Appreciate it a lot.
yeah, it's been fun.
Seeing you in the Discord.
Yeah, it was nice meeting all of you.
Yeah,
Same.
I'll drop the MP4 in the Discord or in your DMs rather, if you guys weren't recording on your own or whatever for your YouTubes and whatnot.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
Awesome.
All right, guys, y'all have a great night.
You too,
Yeah,
guys.
have a good one.
Thanks.
All
Bye
right,
bye.
bye.